Hi, welcome to Utah State's video series on the R22 helicopter. The purpose of today's video, the hover auto rotation, is to simulate an engine failure in a hover. Technically, this is not an auto rotation since the rotors never develop enough upwash to auto rotate the blades. So it technically is called a hover power failure, but everyone calls it a hover auto anyway. To set up this maneuver from a normal hover height, about 2 to 5 feet, we practice the maneuver by configuring our position when we're ready. Get into a stable hover, hand is repositioned with a thumb on top of the throttle, our eyes are outside. From a normal hover, we want our eyes in the horizon. That's great. But in a hover auto, it helps to bring that point of view outside the helicopter about 30 feet out. That provides better peripheral cues, so when we can raise the collective to cushion the landing. To set up for the power failure, we point our nose into the wind at a normal hover height over a hard, smooth surface, like the ramp or taxiway. A hard surface makes more control, poor technique apparent and protects the landing gear from that outward splay or flex, so it's less prone to dynamic rollover. During hover autos over the grass, they're more gentle, but they don't allow flexure of the landing gear, and it's more likely to catch a skid. When executing a hover auto, the throttle should be rolled off at about the time it takes to say hover auto. We continue to roll off into the detent spring. Failure to get into the over-travel spring will allow the correlator to increase the RPM just as you want to cushion the landing. And that causes a violent bouncing on the skids, gets you caught off guard, and forces us to manipulate the collective to prevent the bounce. A snap roll-off technique has the advantage of breaking the hover auto into two portions, the power failure and the separate cushioning event. But it has a disadvantage of giving kind of a one-shot performance to coordinate the controls and is solely based on muscle memory. Thus, it doesn't really allow you to fly the aircraft to the ground, but only demonstrates a rehearsed movement more than exhibiting judgment to fly the maneuver. So that may be subject to different conditions. When candidates fail their check ride in a hover auto, it's usually because they've learned the snap roll-off technique and haven't figured out how to fly the aircraft down to the ground in a controlled way. A hover auto that goes well might as well be an accident. And different conditions like temperature, wind, or gross weight have to be experimented with on any given day before you are conditioned you have to have good results. Power failures may happen in different ways too, and that requires the pilot to adapt to a different situation. So practicing power failures at different speeds is valuable. If the throttle roll-off speed is correct, then you'll see a needle split. The pedals are used to stop the yaw. Usually, right pedal is introduced as the power is cut because of decreased torque of the engine. Remember, fly the maneuver and keep the nose pointed straight ahead. The pedal movement is proportionate to the speed at which you roll off the throttle. The hand bone connected to the foot bone is a good phrase to remember. A snap roll-off requires a snap pedal movement. A slower roll-off of the throttle requires a steady pedal input. The cyclic is used to stop the drift so that we touch down with some slight forward movement so that the toes of the skids touch first. This will lessen the bounce and the impact because the heels of the skids touching first cause the helicopter to bounce heel to toe. So remember, cyclic forward to the right. Also, pushing forward to land on the toes is consistent with other techniques that we use. Remember, the lighter, the better, the colder, the better for performance. A hot, heavy condition relies on expert technique for good results. Start the introduction on the ground at flight RPM. Do all of the movements without fear of what will happen as the helicopter comes down. Then, perform the maneuver at a hover height with the instructor on the throttle and rolling down slowly and then working up to quicker speeds. It may also help for the instructor to roll the throttle down into the 80% range and up a few times to allow the learner to get the feel of the pedals and controlling the yaw at different RPMs. Flying the helicopter at a 1-foot hover as the instructor rolls the throttle down until blade stall is also instructive in learning the point at which lift is lost in a controlled environment. All of this can be done prior to demanding the full hover auto technique from the pilot, which is a more effective technique to learn the maneuver in the first place. The taxi auto rotation is similar, and forward movement of the helicopter in a taxi and introducing a power failure is much easier to perform well than the traditional hover auto. Perform this maneuver over a hard, smooth surface, and then roll the throttle off as we've talked about. The speed of forward movement is controlled, and you can try it at different airspeeds, maybe just below transverse flow effect or just above transverse flow effect. As the ground is approached, push forward cyclic to touch the toes of the skids first. Touching skids level is great, but it can be hard to judge perfectly. If you push for toes first in the Robinson, it can be done quite smoothly. Roll the throttle into the over-travel spring, as in the hover auto, and raise collective. Cushion the landing. You may find that practicing with a taxi auto, taxi power failure prior to the hover auto gives an easier intro to doing the hover auto. Taxi autos are flown in much the same way as a quick stop, full down auto rotation, or a running landing, and that forward cyclic is used to terminate the maneuver. So it shows consistency in the maneuver during that critical transitional phase to the ground. Remember, eyes focal distance is important outside to judge that collective timing about 30 feet towards the front. Roll off the throttle smoothly and continue to roll off into the over-travel spring. Remember, hand bone connected to the foot bone. The speed of the throttle control is correlated with the speed of the pedal. Pedal stop the yaw, cyclic forward to the right to stop the drift. We wish you well, happy flying, and true Aggie blue skies.
All right, welcome to the USU video series on the R22 helicopter. Today we'll be demonstrating the hover auto. As we talked about, our eyes are outside, our hand is repositioned to roll off the throttle, and we are ready to do a hover auto. We're warmed up. Remember, hand bone connected to the foot bone. Eyes are outside, not too far, about 20 to 30 feet out in front of the helicopter. As we have a nice stable hover here, and what we'll do is we'll chop the throttle, and then we'll give the right pedal, hand bone connected to the foot bone, about the same speed at which we apply pedal and apply throttle at the same time. And then we'll let the aircraft settle to the ground while we give forward to the right cyclic, and then raise collective to cushion the landing. There we go. Here's our hover auto in 3, 2, and 1. Comes all the way down, lower collective fully, neutralize controls. Going to roll that up. Nice stable hover, eyes outside, hand is repositioned. Hover auto in 3, 2, and 1. Slight forward drift of the helicopter is what we want, just right on the toes of the helicopter. All right, we're ready to go. Our gauge check is good. 3 and green, lights, rad tags are good. Car piece out of the yellow, fuel is sufficient. Eyes are outside. Nice stable hover. Hover auto in 3, 2, and 1. Forward to the right as we raise the cushion the landing. Hand is repositioned. Eyes are outside. Roll off throttle and pedal simultaneously in 3, 2, and 1. Light forward drift. All right, eyes are outside, hand is repositioned. Roll on off the throttle in 3, 2, and 1. With the raise of the collectors, the cushion landing. Stop the yaw with the cyclic, stop the drift, or stop the yaw with the pedal, stop the drift with the cyclic. Moving forward, right. right along our taxi line. Eyes are outside, hand is repositioned. Taxi auto in 3, 2, and 1. Moving forward, and taxi auto in 3, 2, and 1. Taxi auto, here we go forward. And in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, last taxi auto here. Taxi auto, hand is repositioned, eyes are outside, in 3, 2, and 1. Raise collective cushion landing. Lower collective all the way down to stop us out.